it's Elaine. Thank you for joining me back on my channel. Today I thought I'd share something a little bit different with you. I have recently been using my Silhouette to cut out quite a few of my newer stamp sets, or newer to me. I just found that I was begrudging spending money on dies, and they cost more than the stamps. Don't get me wrong, I love my dies, and I will obviously keep buying dies, especially for stamp sets that I really want and I think I'm going to get a lot of use out of. But I think I just really wanted to try out this method, and I have tried other methods, and I think there's some tutorials on YouTube already on how to use your Silhouette to cut out your stamps. But I thought I would share this with you because I was getting frustrated with the fact that I couldn't stamp my stamps on my sort of cut out pieces very accurately, and I was wasting my cardstock, I was wasting my ink, and this for me has sort of been the best method I've found for using my Silhouette to cut out my stamps. So I'm using my Pixmat. I have tried the other methods where you can scan them into your computer, and there's other tutorials on that, and that you know, that's fine, but I'm enjoying using this. Now I bought this for what it's intended, which is, I think, how it's supposed to be used, is where you stamp out your images, you stick them on the mat, you take the photograph, and then you do what you need to do on the software, which I'm going to do, but I'm not going to use these stamped like it's the stamped images, because I was finding when I was doing this, so stamping them, spending all my time colouring them, putting them down, when I put it through my Silhouette, they weren't cutting accurately, and I really like my outline to be as accurate as possible, and I was either not getting an accurate cut, or I was cutting completely off and I was actually losing some of my image, and which is really disheartening when you've been, you know, lovingly spending the time colouring your images and then it gets ruined when it goes through the Silhouette. It probably is user error. I've tried loads of different things to try and get it to work. I've recalibrated, I've done all sorts of things, watched loads of tutorials, looked at loads of blogs. Nothing I'm doing is working. So if anyone's got any tips on what I might be doing wrong, please feel free to leave me a comment, because I'd love to know where I'm sort of going wrong with that. But so anyway, this is how I've come up with this different method of using the Pixmat and the Silhouette and the Misty combined together to get the results I'm really happy with now. So anyway, this is what I do. I get my stamp set and I take off, which way around do they go? I don't know which way around now. Anyway, I get my stamps, my stamp set, I take off all the stamps, and then I'm left with the pictures on the acetate that, you know, there we go, that they come with, and I stick that down, and I make sure I've got my arrow at the right end, or the right way up, and I stick it down. And then I am going to film me taking a picture of the Pixmat, because there's quite specific things you need to do, and this might be quite self-explanatory to some people. I'm going to show the method I do, but for people who, if there's any questions or anything people want me to show in more detail, I'm more than happy to do that, so just leave me a comment below. This is what I, you know, like to achieve. Nice little pretty evenly stamped, even bordered images. So there we go. That's how I, you know, I'm happy with those. What I was getting was I was trying to manually cut out the shapes and then stamp on, and that was not working for me. My sons are on break at the moment for Easter, so my filming is a little bit mixed. So I'm filming me taking the picture of me downstairs in my kitchen, so the rest of it will be a voiceover, but you're more than happy to explain anything in more further detail. Just thought this might be useful for anyone who's got a Silhouette, and is looking to just get really accurate stamps using, you know, with the supplies they've got, and maybe saving a bit of money for other stamps. You know, I like buying the stamps because that's the fun part, and buying the dies will come hand in hand with that, but they cost so much money. So this is just maybe another alternative way of stretching supplies and spending the money on the fun stuff. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next step. So here I am taking a photo of my PicScan mat with my images on it. Here's a still of the photograph I actually took, trying to keep the shadows at a minimum and making sure I've got the whole mat in the photograph with all of the dots in the corners. So what I do with mine is I send it to myself. I email the image to myself, and then I save it to my desktop. And for anyone wondering, there is where to load your picture in. There's a button on the far right called Pics, and you click on that, and then you can select your file from wherever you've saved it. So in my case, it's my desktop. So I select that, click open, and then it starts to load my image. So we wait for that to start loading. And hopefully it shouldn't take too long, and if all being well, the image should pop up on the main screen, and then you can start to select your trace window button. So I select all my images, including the sentiments, even though I don't really want those, and then I fiddle about with the high and low pass filter, and I click trace outer edge, and you'll get a red line around all your images, and they're all grouped together. And what I like to do is select all of that, cut it, open a new page, and then paste it into the new page. That just helps me to sort of see what I'm doing. So I paste it down, and then I do right click, release compound path, and that means I can then fiddle about with them individually. So I like to move them all to a different area of the page, because sometimes you get little bits, little cut lines that would actually cut if you don't sort of remove those. So I sort of select all that, see where there's any little bits that I need to remove, and then clearly I'm moving them about again. Then I select them all, I use my offset button, click offset, and for the purpose of this video I use 0.04, but ordinarily I would use 0.03 because I like quite a bit of a smaller border around my stamps. And then I just go along each of my images and delete the inner part of the stamped line or offset or line of the stamp, the trace line that we created, and then I'm just left with the offset line. And I also delete any little bits that are left inside because I don't really need those cut out. My silhouette makes a bit of a mess of it, so best just they just get removed. Then I will save that file on my computer, just so that I don't have to start all over again if something goes wrong. And then this is the part where I will probably be sending it to my silhouette. Here I am, putting my paper down, making sure it's stuck down. My mat's quite old, so I have to make sure there's my blade. I have it set on 7, and I load my paper in. And then I'm going to send my file to the silhouette to cut out the shapes. I do end up cutting out more than what's on the screen. And I don't actually cut those decorations. But I use, here are my settings. I do a double cut on mine, but that's purely because of the paper I'm using. And then I send. And here it is, cutting up my images. And here, lovely little cut reindeers. I have got the dies for this stamp set, and I have got the other Mama Elephant stamp set, the reindeer games, but I just really like the images in this one with the little reindeer with the candy cane. Kind of stole my heart. So here I am. This is where I am going to stamp my images onto my cut pieces. So I use the negative space to line up my stamps. So here you'll see I get a sort of scrap piece of cardstock, something that I'm not that bothered about. I stick it in my MISTI, I tape it down so that it doesn't move around. And then I get my stamp and I stamp it onto that scrap piece of cardstock. So here we go, I'm stamping down my first reindeer. And I stamp it onto the scrap cardstock. And I do try and come in nice and close so you can see what I'm doing. So I've stamped it down, then I get my negative piece, I line it up over the top, trying to get the border as even as possible as I go. And then I put my magnets down. I grab my cut pieces that I've cut out with my silhouette. I stick them in. And then I stamp my image as I normally would, but I know it's in the right space because I've already got that stamped image underneath and I've lined it all up properly. It's quite a few steps, but if you stamp a lot of the same image, if you're you're going to do loads of colouring and you did like 10 of this reindeer or 10 of one stamp and 10 of the next image, you could just do it in front of the television, which is what I do most of the time. So there we go, I've just done it a couple of times to show you, and they're pretty much perfect. And then I think I'm just going to show you one more. And I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and it's Neenah Solar White Classic Crest paper. See, this one didn't line. This one for some reason didn't cut. I think something happened when my machine was doing its cutting because my mat isn't very sticky, but it still worked out fine. And then another one just to show you one of the other reindeers, and then that's it. I think it works really well. And here we are. I did show you, this is one with a 0.03 border, so it's slightly narrow around the edge, but this is what I would normally use to cut out my images. So there we go, that's how I use my silhouette, my PicScan mat and my MISTI to create my cut out stamped images. I hope maybe you found that useful, and please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.